show. So you can do a lot of stuff.
So technically, we can stream this whole thing live off of IWUF.
Yes.
As long as you got Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you could do a social media and just put like a little tripod and hook it up and
Nice.
Film the entire event on it. Or even just highlights. Like that's the awesome thing.
Hello. Right in this room.
Really?
Yeah, jump in. There's a.
Maybe later we'll be back.
Hey Patricia.
It's the same structure as yesterday.
Okay.
And then you're into. There's 4 ceremonies today. It's 4 just the same as yesterday. Finish. You're the first one to finish. There's a big gap. You just stop commentating for a while, and then pick it up and see the ceremony starts.
Awesome. When do you want us to start? When do you usually start testing the mics and making sure we're good to go?
Starting to test it now.
Okay.
Because we're on it. How long?
20 minutes, 19 minutes.
So, yeah. Maybe quarter past, 20 past.
Okay.
It should be fine. So just be mindful. Yesterday there's a huge gap on your field of play, wasn't there?
No, them field of play.
Yeah.
Make sure.
So I'm going to show you guys our setup here. This is what we got to work with, okay? So we've got monitor. This is where your instant replays show, and some of your scores come through here. And then they also, whatever shows up on that screen, we can see here. We've got our headsets. Coffee, which is the most important part of a commentator's job, is drinking a lot of coffee and trying not to pee every 5 minutes. And then we've got a computer with all of your results from previous world championships. So we'd like to talk as much about you guys as possible. If there's anything that you guys want to hear, anything you want to say, you can just direct message either of us. We'll be happy to say anything. So I'm going to sign off. You guys check us out in 17 minutes. We'll go live with today's events. All right? See you guys. See, and then you can share your video within the next 24 hours. So that video that I just recorded, share. And now it's saved in my daily, like everyone has a daily blog, right?
They're doing the same with Facebook like that.
So Snapchat had it, right? It's your story, your Snapchat story. Facebook tried to buy Snapchat. Snapchat would not let them buy it. So Snapchat bought Instagram, and Facebook copied Instagram's the idea. And so now they both have the same thing. So same, right? So there's different people on Instagram. So you can look at their daily story. So like her, right? Whatever she's eating. Here goes Rob's. This is probably huge. He knows how to do it really well. But I feel like school-wise, like this is a great way to market to school. You know what I mean? Because it's short clips. It's whatever you want to show.
So on the Facebook one, it's you just add
your story. Same.
Cool. Let me try this out. Oh, that's just a picture. How do you go live with this? There's a photo.
So here, how do we do the live story? Oh, here you go, live. Scroll the top over. So let's see how this works. How long do you get, do you know?
Oh, I see it. Just press this. Okay.
This probably takes a lot more data, or it's probably like slower to boot.
That's a photo.
It is. I think because Instagram is like built for faster upload. I don't know if this is because of the connection, but we've got a really fast connection. Hey guys,
Facebook.
we're on Facebook Live. I'm here with Alan Tang from Canada.
Hello.
So we're going to be commentating the 14th World Wushu Championships here in
Kazan, Russia.
Russia. We're going to be going live in 15 minutes, but I thought we'd show you guys kind of what we do. So we're up in the bleachers. I'll show you a shot of what we see. So that's the carpet, that's field of play 2. And over there, if you can see, there's field of play 1. And up here are our other commentators, Jivan and Anthony Chen from the US. So this is our setup. We've got a mess. The commentator's number 1 tool, which is coffee. Main thing you want to do is make sure you drink a lot of this and try not to go pee every 10 minutes because we can. Then we've got our control booth here where I've got my mic and headset and Alan has his. We can mute, we can listen to the main box, which is a truck that's outside. We've got 2 cameras on each field of play, that's 1. And then over here behind me is camera 2. Right now it's pointed in the wrong area, but that's the second camera that we've got. You can see the camera dude doing his work. And then back to our booth. Then we also have a screen where this plays the instant replay of whatever's going on the carpet. Then you've also got the main screen, which is where a lot of the different scores are getting posted. We unfortunately don't get the actual feed, so we're having to look up to the main screen. We recommended that they include the individual scores in the broadcast, but it's, guys, Just Tool is a whole different group of people. Oh, trying to reconnect. I think it's the connection. I think this thing boots up.
A lot of data. Hello, we're here. Testing. This is Alan Tang. Testing headset.
First headset, this is Mario Martinez. Testing. Yes. Okay. Yep. This is first mic test on coordination. Alright guys, sorry the video got paused. We had to do our mic test, but so if you look here, what I was saying is this screen gives us your instant replay of what's going on live on the field of play. And then again, we don't see scores. So there's like 3 different systems that are recording the event or handling the event. So there's Just Tool that handles the scoring. Then there's a broadcasting agency that's actually recording and filming and doing the commentating. And then there's the filming and broadcast that's done by somebody else. So trying to get, this thing is terrible.
Yeah, I can't even connect.
You know what, maybe it does, maybe it uploads bytes of data, and then once it runs out or this connection drops, it pauses and then picks up.
Seems laggy for everything from Facebook.
I should have turn on my VPN, maybe that would have done it. Alright, before I get cut off again, because the data here is really slow, we're going to get started in a couple minutes. We're getting the countdown soon, so make sure you watch us live. You can check us out on YouTube. Make sure you're checking out all of our live feeds. We're going to be on YouTube at IWF Wushu, IWUF space Wushu YouTube channel, Field of Play 2. There.
Дорогие гости нашего центра внимания, символим, здравствуйте вы сегодня. Добрый день, девочки. Вы поаплодируйте самим себе в знак того, что вы меня слышите, будет классно. Здрасте! Ой, не могу. Здравствуйте, все спрошу, поднимите руку, кто в первый раз пришел. Есть, класс. Вот тут тоже все. Вот тут трибуну я тоже вижу. Здравствуйте, кто первый раз? Ладно. То есть остальные абсолютно прекрасно.
It was. I thought I left it here. I've got the team rosters too, if we need them.
Вкратце для тех, кто не знает, чем отличается наша Wushu от боевого. В общем, там дерутся, там больно, там страшно, там опасно, там... Ну, тоже прикольно, но здесь исключительно красота, грация, и скорее это ближе к спортивной гимнастике, если вы не знаете. Ну что ж, буквально через 7 минут нас начала надо немножко нам с вами поаплодировать, покричать и, в общем, отрепетировать, как мы будем приветствовать спортсменов. Знаете, на счет раз, два, три, просто я проверю, как вы все аплодируете. Раз, два, три, аплодисменты!
This is gonna be my intro.
Снова пришли посмотреть красивый вид спорта. Классненько. Ну ладно, окей. Сейчас первое задание исключительно касается... Поаплодируйте сейчас мужчины. Я понимаю, что вас не так много, но мужчины только поаплодируйте.
Can't even get on right now.
Yeah. Oh, I need to get with them. Like, we don't have a feed.
Пришли сюда. Класс, мое невероятное уважение. Сейчас обращаясь к мужчинам, я отсчитаю 3, 2, 1, и вы должны быть так низко, басом сказать так вот. О, только мужчины. Раз, два, три. Спасибо вам троим. Здорово. А теперь исключительно девушки, только дамы. 3, 2, 1, так же вы так прям высоко, прям. Только девушки, давайте. Раз, два, три. Ой, неплохо, вот я вас тоже слышу. Прям. А теперь все вместе, только сейчас аплодисменты, давайте. Раз,
Turn off your Wi-Fi and turn it back on. Mine's working.
И перед тем, как вам дать финальный такой заряд на встречу наших атлетов, знаете, очень простой вопрос, на него всем вместе вам тоже нужно ответить. Так же, я скажу раз, два, три. Очень простой вопрос. Считаете ли вы действительно, что по праву Казань называют одним из самых гостеприимных городов России? Да или нет? Знаете, кто сказал нет? Пойди отсюда. Где все против? А сейчас тогда действительно считаю, что вы гостеприимны, давайте...
Yeah, they're getting a feed.
Спортсмены, которые будут к нам выходить, вы прочувствовали? Очень такое простое задание. Всем поднять наверх обе руки. Обе руки. Пожалуйста, все вместе. Прям вот. Вы тоже, вот я вас вижу. Вот обе ручки наверх. И сейчас Будем делать такую штуку. Сначала машем в ту сторону, то есть для вас направо, вот туда, 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 вот туда, туда. Все, запомнили, классно. И теперь очень простое на международном языке, скажем, что наши спортсмены поняли вас. Очень простое выражение звучит «Welcome to Kazan». Добро пожаловать в Казань. Всем очень это ясно. Теперь мы вот так же размахиваем руками, пожалуйста, вы нужно будет кричать. Вот туда машем, и вот делаем вот такую штуку. Welcome to Kazan. Если вам понятно, то хлопните один раз. Все, здорово. Ручки наверх. Все, вот так вот за мной. Начинаем туда. 3, 4. Welcome to Kazan. Теперь вы. To Kazan. Welcome to Kazan. И быстрее, 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 быстрее. Смуги, смуги. Прекрасно. Сейчас, секундочку, запомнили, подождите. Сейчас, вот как раз. Очень простая такая фишечка. Кто кого перекричит, туда и сидят вдалеке, им не так повезло, как нам. Но мы посоревнуемся в аплодисментах.
Power button.
Я показываю на всех вас, аплодируйте, давайте попробуем. Вот на вас показываю, аплодируйте, кричите.
Here we are live at the 14th World Wushu Championships, and we're about to start day 2 of the Taolu competition. We are on floor number 2. Let's take a look at that. This is floor number 2. The judges are about to come out. We see Eric from Canada on floor number 1. He's the first competitor in the Daoshu event, so we wish him luck. To see that, make sure you guys come in and tune into YouTube channel, which is IWUF space Wushu. That's the official channel of the live broadcast. You'll see Eric competing shortly, just about to start in about 10 to 15 minutes. So this is the setup here at the 14th World Wushu Championships. Here comes the athletes marching out. This is from the women's Nanquan event. And on carpet number 1, that is the men's Daoshu event.
The afternoon is upon us and we are back inside the Gymnastics Palace in Kazan for day 2 of the 14th World Wushu Championships. Mario Martinez is my name and I will be your commentator here on Taolu Carpet 2. And alongside me I have Alan Tang, who has been an integral part of the Wushu family in Canada for quite some time. Well, we can start off by recapping on what we saw yesterday, Alan. Anything in particular that caught your eye?
Yesterday's events consisted of the women's Tai Chi Jian event along with the Qiangshu event. There was plenty of Russian interest and as well, obviously the winners of those events, there was China, who competed in the Qiangshu, performed a spectacular form and won the gold medal with a 9.68. In the Taiji Jian, we had the winner from Hong Kong take the gold medal. And today we have the women's Nanquan, or Southern Fist, along with the men's Nangun, or Southern Staff event here on carpet number 2.
Yeah, that's right, Alan. There's plenty of Russian interest in this afternoon's events as well. We've got Tatiana Evshana competing in our next event, which is women's Nanshan, and Dmitry Tyunov following shortly, competing in men's Nangun. However, we've seen some really strong performances from Asian teams. China in particular had a strong showing yesterday, taking home 2 gold medals. And so far the medal standings that we have are China has 2 golds, Hong Kong with a gold and a silver, Indonesia, Vietnam, respectively, each with a silver, and then we have Russia, Japan, and Macau trailing with a bronze each. But I suspect that a lot of that will change today as we enter into today's events.
That's right, and our field of play number 2 in our carpet number 2 for the women's Nanquan, we have a total of 16 athletes. First off, we'll see Nepal, followed by Hong Kong and Indonesia. And of course, coming in 4th right now on our start list is the Russian athlete Tatiana.
Now, Alan, what I'll be interested to see is, as we discussed yesterday, the major change for this competition is that sea level difficulties are being counted for full points. And based on what we saw from the warm-ups, it looked like many athletes were attempting them, but we didn't see too many of those difficulties being attempted outside of Chinese athletes and a couple of Russian athletes on our field of play. But in reviewing some of the film from field of play 1 and carpet 1, it looked like there were a lot of Asian countries and professional teams trying those 720s. So I'll be curious if we see some today.
That's right. As you witnessed yesterday in the women's Qiangshu, the Chinese athlete had a 720-degree inside jump kick, which is one of the much more difficult maneuvers here in Wushu competition.
I think the overall format, as what we've seen from relative previous World Wushu Championships, really gives the athletes a good chance to rest. I know in previous competitions we've condensed it to 3, sometimes 4 days. I think this allotment for additional days, shorter event days, allows for a lot more recovery. So we're going to see a lot of well-rested athletes potentially coming back after some of yesterday's events. We'll have to see how they do.
That's right. Here in the 14th World Wushu Championships, they've spread out the competition days to a full 5 days, whereas athletes are only required to compete in 1 event per day. So at that point, there's a lot more rest time. There's only 1 Taolu session per day, and as we see, it allows for a bit more rest time of the athletes, and they can well equip themselves in each day of competition without worrying of competing at the night session or whatnot.
And of course, as always, if you're watching us live on YouTube, don't forget about our other social media feeds. We'll have tons of images being posted throughout the event on our Instagram page. That's IWUF_official. And of course, you can check the official results, videos, short replays of recaps following each day's events, and interviews on Facebook at the IWF official website, which is International Wushu Federation, IWF official.
We're just finishing off the introduction of the judges and just about to march in the first group of athletes now.
So within these field of 16 competitors, we've got really strong competitors from Indonesia. Juwita Nizawasni, who I believe was a medalist at the Taolu Cup, and then last World Championships, I believe she did very well. We've also got, of course, the Russia favorite, Tatiana Evshina. I know she's competed for quite some time. She's very strong, she's very seasoned. She's able to execute. I don't think that she's able to manage the pressure, and just a strong overall athlete. And then we've also got athletes from Japan and China, and of course, Hong Kong.
That's right, and as well from the Asian countries, one of the stronger athletes and stronger countries in Nanquan as well. We have a competitor from Malaysia. Have you seen what she is capable of doing?
You know, I remember seeing that team arrive with the new competitors at the last World Championships, and I wasn't quite sure what to expect, but I think our viewers are in for a welcome surprise with some of the difficulties that they're able to execute. I think they raised the overall bar in this event.
Judge number 9, судья номер 9, Yuman Tong, Hong Kong. Judges, arena.
So as with yesterday, in our judging panel, we have a total of 9 judges along with our head judge. In a quick recap, the Wushu Taolu is devised into 3 components, namely the A, technical requirements, managed by 3 judges, then the B, overall performance component, and the C, which is the difficult component of the Wushu Taolu competition.
Judge number 4, судья номер 4, Taolu, Germany. Judge number 5, судья номер 5, Myra Tornesakis, Greece. Judge number 6, судья номер 6, Alex Kwok, Canada.
So Alan, based on yesterday's events, it looked like back sweeps were really being looked at very carefully. Now, there's no back sweeps in any of the weapon events, so I'll be curious at what the judges are looking for. We have a slightly different perspective from where we're sitting, so it'll be interesting what they catch and what they're really going to be standing out and what deductions we'll see recurring from all of these weapon events.
That's right, and even from the events that we're seeing on floor number 2 here, they are the Southern or the Nanquan events, including the open hand form and the Southern staff. And typically in this style of competition, more focus is placed upon the strength of the athlete, the power they exert, the application of movement, whereas the stances are typically higher in nature than in the northern style events. So there's very few deduction areas that the judges can look for other than when we're looking at balances and slight losses of balance. There are no sweeps, as we mentioned, but there are the typical requirements for the horse stance, the bow stance, and the empty stance. But with the Southern style, the requirement is slightly different in that the stances can be higher than the usual.
Yeah, I think there's very specific difficulties. I know that in some of the difficulty movements that the C judges review, I know one of the recurring themes that we saw yesterday was the kicking below shoulder level. So it'll be interesting to see how much they emphasize that in Nanquan.
That's right. Okay. In the jump kick or the acrobatic kick components, athletes are required to raise their foot above their shoulder level. And that is a major deduction point that usually the judges are looking for. And as well for the Southern events, the famous the butterfly stance for the Southern style, where they're looking that the athletes are capable of really keeping their heels down on the floor upon executing that stance after any particular jumping kick or acrobatic movement.
So I see our next competitors lining up. We'll be getting started in just a second.
That will be Nima Magar from Nepal. Now, Mario, for our viewers that may be new to Wushu, what aspects can we expect to see in the Southern styles that differentiate itself from other styles in Wushu?
So some of the major differences that you'll compare it to relative to yesterday's Qiangshu events is the hand techniques are different. They're more traditional Chinese martial arts style based. So you'll see claws, hooks, palms, used in a slightly different way than they were in Qiangshu. Of course, there's no claws in Qiangshu, but a lot of solid ground stance move, a lot of really quick footwork. The acrobatic techniques are still similar, but there are slight variations in the way that athletes can land those techniques. And then, of course, the Nanquan yell that you'll hear as athletes demonstrate the exertion of power.
And here we go, the first athlete, Nima Magar from Nepal. This is women's Nanquan. Setting up for her first difficulty component. This is an outside crescent kick, jumping crescent kick, 360-degree turn.
There's one of those variations in the combinations, a jump inside kick to a jump front kick combo.
But the requirement is landing on one leg for the Southern style, which is a challenge and a test of their balance. And as you see with Nima, there were slight mishaps in her balances, so most likely she'll get deducted for that.
There we see a jump inside fall. Oh, stumble and hands down on the kip up. Now, of course, as we saw from yesterday, there were a couple of athletes who had this deduction come up. And as we know, anytime that your hands hit the ground, it's considered a fall. And it is a 0.3 deduction.
And as with any Wushu competition, what you're looking for is, again, the understanding of the athlete in terms of the application of technique and whether they're able to showcase that in their routine. With their striking, with their stances, with their kicks. And that is what really differentiates a high-performing elite athlete from that of just one demonstrating movement. Here we saw Nima doing the front jump kick into a single leg balance.
Jump inside fall, and here we see the stumble as she comes up. Just a little too far back.
And that's really where the judges on the jump kicks are looking for the height, the contact point, and the control of the leg and showing and demonstrating the kicking technique. As we await for Nima's score from Nepal, we have Jen Shin Hee on deck, and she is from Hong Kong.
Looks like there's a little bit of calibration going on from the judges.
Being a score out of 10, the A score, or the technical component, is out of 5, whereas it is marked on a deduction basis, and the judges are looking for errors to deduct. The B score out of 3 is a performance given score, whereas the 3 judges are providing a score indicating the overall performance capability of the athlete in terms of their intent, their expression, their speed and power, and how they utilize that in their routine. And then finally, we have the C score, which is a component out of 2, and that is a deduction-based score made up of the difficulty requirements and movements of the athlete. So whether or not they complete that difficulty component is an indicator whether or not the judges will deduct or allow for that mark to be given.
Now, we saw some really long fields of play yesterday with 80-plus competitors in male Qiangshu. I believe the Chinese athlete was able to take away the gold medal with a 9.7. Alan, I'm really interested to see if we're going to see any duplicate scores that are able to get that high in a performance value. I believe we might be able to see that again replay in some of the other China athletes, but what we predominantly saw were the 9.6s were around where the top podium finishers were.
And here is our final score for Nima Magar from Nepal. It is 7.55. So definitely she had a series of deductions for her stability, and in addition to her using her hands to balance herself on the floor, because she fell back on the kip-up movement. And quite a few deductions from her difficulty component as well. Next up, we have the athlete from Hong Kong, Tianxin He. And Hong Kong has always been formidable in this Southern style event. We see her opening sequence. Some very quick movements with her hands, demonstrating blocking and striking movements into her back tuck with a double butterfly stance landing, followed by an outside .360 jump kick there. And in the Nanquan or Southern style, you'll see a lot of short hand movements.
A lot of hand techniques taken from a lot of traditional Chinese martial arts. So you'll see tiger movements,
Crane movements.
Yep. A lot of really complex footwork.
However, as indicated, typically the stances are slightly higher than the Northern style. And the cries or the screams help indicate the power movements and as well the expression and the martial intent of the athlete.
There we see that backflip into double knees. What the judges are looking for is that both of the heels are flat down on the ground. Same here into that one knee down. The heel must be flush with the floor.
That is the butterfly stance. And as a B judge, what we're looking at is the intent and accuracy of the strikes, the punches, the blocks, and trying to identify and see the martial intent behind it. The final score for Tianxin He is 9.62.
Perfect A score, perfect C score, 2.62 B score. Really strong performance.
And that is an average of 4 scores. So there are 4 judges in the B category, and what is taken is the middle 2 scores. So the high and the low is deducted, and the average of the middle 2 scores is what is used in the B component score. Here we have Juwita Wazni of Indonesia.
And of course, Juwita is our gold medalist in Nandao and Nangun at the 13th World Wushu Championships. She also took home a bronze in this event.
Very strong start, and she's one of the few female competitors that perform that combination, which is the inside crescent kick followed by what we call a single leg back tuck or a gainer into a butterfly stance landing.
Now, Alan, it's always interesting for me to see the way that athletes develop their own difficulty movies. There you saw Joita put a slightly different spin on her jump inside, arching her back a lot more, foot towards the ceiling. It's always interesting how athletes are able to develop the techniques to suit their own style or their own strengths.
That's right, and based on the criteria, the most important is the height of the kick and the stability of the landing. Here we see her demonstrating a 540-degree outside kick. These are the uppercut strikes, a block and strike combination, leading into her inside drop kick fall. And her final score is 9.59. So again, getting a perfect score for her Group A technical component and Group C technical difficulty component. And really deriving from the Group B score, which is very, very important in the Southern events. That currently places her in second place.
And here we have Tatiana Evshina from Russia. Of course, multi-time podium finisher at World Wushu Championships. She was a podium finisher at the 11th and 10th World Wushu Championships.
That is a back flip onto a single leg butterfly stance, followed by an outside 540-degree kick. Very strong landing. And a 540-degree inside jump kick.
Into another jump inside 540.
Very strong combinations and very stable landings.
And of course, you can hear all of the chanting from the crowd.
Hometown favorite.
Clear favorite.
And she's performing well so far. This is leading up into her final section of the routine. And a strong finish right up to the end of her routine.
Really strong jump outside 540 crescent kick into a horse stance. And there we see her jump inside 540 into that butterfly stance.
And what the judges are looking for, you see on her landing, it is very, very stable. They're looking that there's no movement, that the feet are planted on the floor. And with the butterfly stance, again, the big indicator is that heel, the back heel.
A lot of anticipation in the crowd for that score, Alan.
This is the women's Nanquan Southern Style Hand Form event. We're waiting the score for the Russian athlete Tatiana. And her final score is 9.65, which currently puts her in first place, a well-deserved score. So as you see, she had no deductions on her technical requirements, nor for her difficulty component, and a very well-rounded
Group B score, 2.65.
And another very strong athlete on deck right now. This is our athlete from Iran. This is Nahid Najafabadi from Iran. Very strong Wushu team. You see the short strikes and blocks that typically form the opening. Oh, there was a slight loss of balance there on that back tuck. And from using her hand to support, definitely there'll be a deduction on that.
Now, of course, the stipulation is that you hold those stances for at least 2 seconds. You don't want to leave any doubt in the judge's mind that that was not a stable landing. I'll be curious to see how the judges count these jumps. Doesn't seem like she's holding them just short enough.
Overall, a decent routine. However, at this level of competition, what you're really looking for is to ensure that you're not making those mistakes on your difficulty components.
Yeah, that's something that we saw throughout the competition yesterday. A lot of losses of balances, which really, really hurt your overall score.
And that's extenuated when especially you're using your hands to provide that additional support. It's considered as a fall, which is a deduction of minimum 0.3.
Really strong athlete overall. I'm sure we'll see her in the next couple of World Wushu Championships.
That's right. So her final score is 8.78. 2 deductions there. One for, again, that additional support. And again, with her missing that first combination of difficulty movement.
Kicking below the shoulder level. 2.53 overall Group B score. And our next competitor is from Brazil, Marcela Polastri Teresa. She sets up for her opening jumps. Jump outside kick. 360 into a horse stance landing.
It's a single leg jump kick into a balance. You saw a little stumble there. So when you have those mistakes, especially on those stumbles like that, you saw a little wobble, but once you move that foot, not only are you being deducted for a loss of balance, but as well you're losing your marks for that entire difficulty component. That is her empty stance to finish off her routine. And as I mentioned before, you see the empty stance requirements in the Southern style. They're slightly higher, almost to a 45-degree angle compared to the Qiangshu, which is required to be parallel with the ground.
And then number 7, Nangun.
That's an inside crescent kick. As you see her back heel slightly moved. Not sure if the judges caught that.
Final score for Marcella, 7.97.
So quite a few deductions on both her difficulty and her technical requirements.
We have a couple of losses of balance. And then they did catch that butterfly stance for the heel being up.
Our next athlete is from Algeria. This is Sakor Dabia.
She
Loss of balance.
recovered.
But so when they recover like that, Mario, what's happening is they will definitely get a mark deducted on their A score for loss of balance, but the judges most likely are looking for her landing, so she should get her score for the difficulty component.
Yeah, the way that the judges are looking at the landings is ensuring that there is no movement of the feet, that there is no additional support required. If the athlete lands it, it's still considered, but again, remember, that doesn't save the athlete from being penalized by the A judges, which are looking at overall deduction. So a loss of balance, swaying, instability. It's the additional jump that is considered not technically executing or completing the movement that completely removes those points. Sakor is a very strong Southern competitor, of course, competing at the 13th and 12th World Wushu Championships, coming in 4th place in Nanquan compulsory at the 12th World Championships. There we see that jump outside, feet back. There might have been a slight shuffle of the feet.
The final score for Sakor is 8.27. So she did get both deducted for her loss of balance, but as well with the movement of the feet, she was deducted as well for her difficulty component score. So this is Lucy Lee from the United States in this women's Nanquan Southern Fist event. Back tuck into single butterfly stance. This is a 180-degree turn front jump kick into single leg balance, followed by a 540-degree inside jump kick. So typically with athletes in most of the barehanded routines, placing most of their difficulty components in the first section, as it is very strenuating in terms of for their endurance. Drop stance. And now demonstrating some of the strikes and blocks associated with the martial arts.
Overall solid performance from Lucy Lee.
In this field of 16 athletes for the women's Nanquan, we are on competitor number 9. This is Lucy Lee from the United States. And her final score is 9.40, having one deduction on her Group A component.
Looks like it was that butterfly stance with the heel up. Overall B score of 2.50.
And next we have Daria from Uzbekistan. It's a single leg backflip into a 540-degree inside kick, followed by an outside 540-degree kick. But there you saw an incomplete landing where she stumbled on that horse stance. So that will definitely hurt her mark. As she reaches the final combination of her routine. This is Daria Latasheva from Uzbekistan.
Final score 6.0. Final score 8.41.
Final score for Daria, 8.41. Looks like she was deducted quite heavily for a couple of missed difficulty movements. 1.20 out of a possible 2.0 in her overall difficulty.
And as well, she was deducted for loss of balance and for her empty stance, whereas the requirement is to ensure that the heels of the front toe is off the carpet. And
here we have Elizabeth Lim from Australia.
And that's where you're going to see some of the differences. Again, looking for in high-performance athletes, really that stability upon the landings of their jumps. And over the last few years and in competition, you've seen a higher demand by the judges on those difficulty components. And that is one of the main reasons why we have those difficulty components in Wushu competition, is to really challenge the athlete and to differentiate the technical skills and the physical skills of these athletes in terms of not only kicking or not only performing a jump kick, but as to how high they can kick and how many rotations they are able to demonstrate that kick, along with providing a stable and strong landing. So I believe a lot of martial arts fans are always wondering, why are there all these acrobatic movements in Wushu competition? Well, really, that's the whole point, is that it is an individual competition to challenge the physical limits of the athlete in terms of their martial arts skills. But then, as well, you look at how they apply it in their routine, and how you can apply it to actual skill sets that you use for combat, which is demonstrated in the Sanda competition.
And Elizabeth Lim's final score, 8.37. Looks like she had a couple of missed difficulty movements, and her overall B score was a 2.37. Was able to get all of her A points, but of course those difficulty movements definitely brought down that score.
Next up, we have our athlete from Japan. This is Masaki Saka. Very strong short burst of strikes and blocks in her opening sequence, leading into a 540-degree inside jump kick with a strong butterfly stance landing. That is a 180-degree rotation turn on her front jump kick. And there she is, fulfilling the majority of her difficulty components. Good landings. Some of the more traditional movements.
Really strong overall performance.
In a routine, that's where you'll see some of the differences in the difficulty components that the athletes choose to do. In Masaki's form, you saw quite a few of the A-level and B-level combinations, which are the kicks that require the 360-degree rotations, and as well that front jump kick into the single leg balance.
Overall score for Misaki is 9.02. One deduction in her A group for a loss of balance. Looks like there was a missed difficulty movement
on her very first combination. And next we have the athlete from China. This is Huiying Chen in the women's Nanquan event. Very strong start. That's a very clean opening sequence.
Jump inside 720.
And
A jump outside 540.
Followed by inside 540-degree turn. So very strong combinations for her difficulty. And here you see her striking and kicking combinations. Double uppercut. Very fast movements.
If you just look at the overall complexity of the hand and footwork, it's just extremely fast. Everything is intertwined together.
Very fast and detailed indeed.
A lot of power generating from the hips.
Is her drop stance requirement, followed by an elbow. And very strong routine right to the end. That was Huiying Chen from China. You can see her demonstrating the short punches and blocks reflected in the Nanquan style.
Final score for Huiying Chen, 9.69. Perfect A score, perfect C score, overall B score of 2.69.
And I think one of the only athletes in this female division demonstrating that 720-degree rotation kick. This is Thuc On Nguyen from Vietnam.
Final score 7.3.
The back tuck into the single butterfly stance, followed by the outside 540-degree kick, and inside 540-degree kick. So Mario, why is it possible that you give us a little outline in terms of how the difficulty components are derived and the point value of some of those moves?
Yeah, so the overall score that you can get, the total max score that you can get for Group C, or the difficulty movements, is 2.0. That can be comprised out of the athletes have an option of choosing a difficulty movement, and then there's the landing, or what is known as the connection move. The overall total composition is 1.4 for the difficulty movements and a 0.6 for the connections. So there the athlete has a bunch of different options, and much like we were talking about yesterday, some athletes may opt to do lower level difficulties but do more of them, play it a little bit safer to be able to maximize their points. Or of course, if you do more, that means that you may be able to get away with doing less difficulty movements. But of course, as we saw throughout yesterday and some of today's earlier athletes, some of those deductions are very costly and can really impact your C score, bringing down your overall score significantly down and dropping you in the rankings. Now, of course, those difficulty techniques vary depending on the different events. So Changchuan, Nanquan, Taijiqian each have slightly different individual movements that the athlete is able to choose from, giving them different options based on things, their strengths, where they have a bit more power, and how they're able to execute those techniques.
And the final score for Thuc On Nguyen is 9.47. She was deducted slightly for her horizontal nail kick.
And our final competitor in today's women's Nanquan event, Truan Minh Tan from Malaysia.
Final score 9.68.
Really strong opening. There you see that backflip into a butterfly
strong.
stance. Jump inside 540 kick into a butterfly stance.
And that's the outside 540-degree kick.
Really strong.
As you can see, typical with the Nanquan, her movements are very crisp, very fast, and there's a very clear indication of her targets, where she is attacking, where she's defending. And as a martial art, it's very, very important to showcase that in your routine. And the Malaysians are, I can say they've been very popular in the Nanquan categories for many years.
There we see her coach looking on intently in the background, Hayashi Yoko, the Malaysian team coach.
Great routine by Chang Min Tan from Malaysia. I wouldn't be surprised to see her in one of the top placings for this routine. In those high performance athletes, you really see how they stress the clarity of their movements, and particularly in their landings. Her final score, 9.49. She had a slight deduction for a sway.
Overall B score of 2.59. Still a strong performance. That puts her in 5th place.
A strong B score. But where she got deducted for was that upper body swaying motion, and the judges caught that. So you see the final results for the women's Nanquan. We have atop the rankings again is China, Hui Ying Chen with 9.69, followed by the Russian athlete demonstrating a very good form earlier, Tatiana
Ivshina
at 9.65, and the Hong Kong athlete in 3rd place, Jianxian He at 9.62. Next up on the list is the men's Southern Staff or Nangun event.
We've got a field of 49 competitors. I can see our first competitor lining up now, preparing. That is Brandon Chan from the United States.
Where's Brandon training out of, Mario?
Brandon is out of Chicago, I believe.
And on deck is former world champion Farshad Arabi from Iran, followed by Philip Wong from Canada. That's rounding up our first 3 athletes.
Now, Alan, I know that I saw the men's Southern event warming up the first day of team trainings, and I was able to see a couple of them executing 720s. Now, a lot of the times that decision is made by the coach on whether the athlete is ready to execute that movement during competition. It'll be very interesting to see if we see that. Based on this large field of competitors, some may opt to try them.
I wouldn't be surprised, but at the same time, they're taking a higher risk in terms of landing all of those components. And in this field, that will either really separate the athlete in terms of their difficulty skill set, or it could put them in a bad spot if they do miss that landing. As with other weapon routines in Wushu, the weapon is an apparatus that's really an extension of the body and challenging the ability of the athlete to control a weapon in play. different from the hand routine. And the weapons are either what we call swords, with the straight sword, or the broadsword, or the southern sword, and as well with the weapons, the long weapons, being the spear, the staff, and the southern staff. How it differentiates from the northern staff is it is slightly heavier in weight set, and the athletes, as with the southern style, are required to demonstrate their power with it, and their speed and their movement. They must have a complete set of attacks and blocks using the weapon, and of course it does make the difficulty movements even more difficult, because now not only are they required to do that jump, but to do it with the weapon in hand.
Here we have Brandon Chan from the U.S.
You'll see that slightly bent stance at the beginning. That is called a dragon stance. A slight mishap on that outside kick, and had to do with the landing there.
Now, one of the main attributes of Nangun that you'll want to watch for is, similar to Nanquan, all power generates from the center and then pushes out to your extremities. Athletes in southern staff similarly must demonstrate the power being generated by their core and extending out through their staff.
In every routine, there's a certain number of compulsory movements required that has to do with your strikes or attacks, and as well to defensive techniques such as blocks. These include wrapping the weapon around your head, blocking, pushing the weapon, poking the weapon. And then these compulsory movements are choreographed together to complete a routine along with required stances. Say inside jump. You see as they slam that weapon on the floor, trying to demonstrate the control of the apparatus. Brandon's final score, 8.85. 2 deductions for loss of balance. And in addition,
Deduction for that horse riding stance.
and where you get deducted for that is whether your back is bent or your heels come off the floor. And here we have Farshad Arabi from Iran.
He's been competing for a very long time Iranian champion.
Very strong opening
Jump inside
sequence.
into the back gainer. Standing jump inside kick, 360.
And by slamming that staff on the floor, what you're indicating and trying to display is the amount of control and power towards your target. 2 side blocks. The front push with the staff. And final empty stance combination. That is Farshad Arabi from Iran.
Farshad, of course, our silver medalist from last World Wushu Championships in men's Nundao. We'll see how he fares here. 9.60. Good for perfect A score, perfect C score, and overall B score of 2.6.
And next up, we have my fellow Canadian. This is Philip Wong from Canada in the men's Nangun Southern Staff event. Philip is the Canadian national champion, and he was a bronze medalist in the compulsory Nanquan at last year, 2 years ago at the last World Championship. That's a 540-degree outside kick, followed by a 540-degree inside kick. Front snap kick, single leg balance landing.
Jump inside fall.
And he released his staff on that move. That should cost him a few points there. Very important that athletes keep a strong hold of their weapon.
Now, Ellen, what's interesting is that we're seeing a lot of variance in the weapons. I've seen, as we know, there's been the advent of the new composite weapons. It looks like some athletes have adopted them, but as you and I both know, those still break.
That's
so it'll
right.
be interesting to see in some of the other events how those weapons, how the adoption has come across, and if we see any breakages.
That's right. Typically, for the Southern weapons being a heavier staff, you're not going to have too many breakages, but very common in the Northern staff where there's a lot of slamming that weapon onto the ground and using the tip of the weapon for strikes.
And Philip's final score, 9.0, we see the two deductions, one for letting go of his weapon.
And a slight sway at the beginning of his routine.
And the heel up on the butterfly. Up next is Po Wei Lai from Taipei. Another strong Southern competitor.
Very quick movements to start off. Into a back flip butterfly stance landing, very clean. Outside 540 degree, very strong landing. And that's what you'll see from most of these top athletes, is really the stability they show in their landings.
And I can tell you it's extremely challenging to do the gainer and a lot of the difficulty movements barehand, but with that Nangun, just that overall amount of mass that you have in your hands and the extension is very difficult. Po Wei Lai having no challenges, of course, moving really powerfully through his form.
Yes, and you'll see that in a routine. By the time the third section hits, which is about now, it is extremely tiring. And for the athlete to really demonstrate their speed and power at this point, very nice combination. That was very unique that not only did he do that inside kick drop, but as well he did a rotation with the weapon at the same time.
And we see Po Wei opting to use the composite staff.
Very nice choreography of the routine, very unique. I'm sure you're going to see his mark rank up there with some of the best in this division.
Final score 7.94.
Very solid landing. And really what the judges are looking for, that there's minimal or no movement on that butterfly stance landing. And his score of 2.65 for his B score, and perfect Group A and Group C marks, that ranks him #1 so far with a 9.65. And it's fair to say that typically through this competition, you've seen the 9.6s being the top level mark so far. So I'm sure he's in the running for a medal position.
And our next competitor is from the United States, Daniel Hu.
Some of the easy indicators showing the Southern style is that short sleeve uniform. Each of the styles have their own independent uniform types. The Southern style being the low collar and sleeveless, whereas the Qiangshu or Northern styles being the short sleeve, and then the Tai Chi style having the long sleeve uniforms.
And there we see again similar issues with that jump inside fall. He let go of his staff. That's going to cost him. Now, for those of you at home, if it's your first time watching Wushu and you may not be familiar with the sport, athletes are competing on a platform carpet that is a slight composite foam underneath that gives a little bit of give, just enough to provide the athletes a little bit of support.
That's right. And unlike sprung floors, the Wushu floor actually does not help or aid in your jumps, but simply aids in your landings to absorb some of the shock.
That's right. I'd be curious if some of the athletes who don't have access to a lot of those carpets are having issues because of the bounce as you land. Some of that tension in the carpet, you know, it being your first day on this type of mat, that may be causing some issues. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Wushu competition is divided by combative Sanda events and non-combative Taolu events. The Taolu category
final score for Daniel Hu, 9.17.
is broken up into various styles of barehanded events along with short weapon events and long weapon events. Currently we are in the men's Southern staff or Nangun event category. There are 49 athletes here today in this event.
Our next competitor from Switzerland, Sami Ben Mahmoud. Jump outside 540 into a horse stance. Jump inside into a jump front kick single leg balance. And there we see that jump inside 540, being careful to keep that heel down.
That's something in the Southern style that the judges are definitely looking for.
There we see his closing movements. That was Sami Ben Mahmoud from Switzerland. There we see the replay. Really strong opening sequence. Lots of power. There we see that jump inside to jump front kick. Single leg balance. Little bit of loss of balance there. And Sami's final score is 9.25. Looks like there were 2 deductions. One for that loss of balance. And then an additional deduction for the butterfly stance.
Again, looking at the heel of that back foot. Right now we have the Malaysian athlete, Man Hua Ho, a former world champion. One of the top competing athletes here in this event. Again, Malaysia, very strong Wushu team, and particularly they've been known to have very strong athletes in the southern events in both the male and female categories.
Really fast opening combination.
That's where you're demonstrating your speed, your clarity. Front jump kick into single leg balance. Followed by an outside 540-degree turn. An inside 540-degree turn.
Alan, that's where you really see the experience of these athletes, of the ones who have been here multiple times. You see them execute difficulty techniques and really hold them, ensuring that they're capturing all the full points.
That's right, because as an experienced athlete, you definitely know that any single deduction off your difficulty component, you're pretty much down in the rankings.
Really strong performance from Man Hua Ho. We'll have to see how the judges score it.
With the southern jump kicks, unlike the northern, you're not required to make contact with your hand. The final score for the Malaysian athlete, 9.63. Very strong score, putting him into second place. And now on the floor is Sajan Lama from India.
Final score 9.65. And the number 25.
Backflip into the butterfly stance. Here we have his opening sequence. Jump inside kick to a backwards somersault or the gainer into a butterfly stance. Really difficult combo. Jump inside 540. Finishing that combination with a jump outside 360 kick into a horse stance.
As with many of the athletes, placing the majority of their difficulty components at the beginning of their routine, simply to strategize their use of energy. I'm not sure if the judges caught that one.
Yeah.
That he slightly missed the grip on his staff. That is something that they're definitely looking for. But in comparison, really, with the veteran athletes and former world champions, you really see the differentiation in terms of the speed and the clarity of the movements. And with the performance, what you're looking for is the intent of the athlete, whether they're looking at that weapon and showcasing their control over it and the practical use of that weapon.
Yeah, that's right. And even that experience comes into play even when you make mistakes, you know. A lot of the times you may be able to recover from a mistake or even not demonstrate or be able to play off the movement. That's right. Remember, the judges may have an overall idea of what the composition of your form is based on your difficulty movements. However, they truly don't know how you may vary up different combination movements.
And that's what you see in the Senior World Championships. These are what you call optional routines, where they're made up of compulsory moves, meaning movements that are required, such as your strikes and certain blocks and kicks, and then as well made up of required difficulty components. However, the choreography is solely unique to each individual athlete. Awaiting the final score for the athlete from India. Currently, the big score to beat is from Taipei, Po Wai Lai, currently holding the gold medal position at 9.65, followed by Man Hua Ho from Malaysia at 9.63, and Farhad Arabi from Iran at 9.60. So the final score for this athlete from India is 9.10.
And it looks like they definitely caught that hand coming off of the weapon. Getting a code, a 0.1 deduction in his overall Group A score, bringing him to score down to a 4.9 out of a 5.0 possible. And our next competitor is from Mexico, Lincoln Rodriguez. Jump outside 540 into a horse stance. There we see that backflip into a butterfly stance, but as you saw, he came up on the landing. So we'll have to see if he gets those points, yeah. Jump outside 360 into a horse stance landing. Finishing up his last set of jumps with a jump inside kick fall. And you may see a lot of athletes executing that jump inside kick. It's similar to the jump inside kick landing into stances, but that downward sideward fall is purposeful.
That's right. What you're targeting is a target on the ground, and the key component to landing that is to do it without any bounce off that floor.
Yeah, the kicking leg has to be over your waist level, I believe, and then that coming down has to be controlled. There we see that slight stumble on the landing on that landing.
The inside fall. Oh, no, this is the 540-degree turn. The 360-degree jump, and that's the landing fall. And what you're really looking for is that your foot is landing purposefully onto a target when you do that jump kick.
Final score 5-2. At the number 27, Benta.
And the final score for the Mexican athlete, Lincoln Rodriguez, is 8.14.
There we see he got a deduction for a loss of balance. And then additionally, kicking below the shoulder level on his A-judge score, in addition to missing a 1.0 on his overall difficulty, bringing his score down to 8.14.
So as with any competitor, what you're really trying to achieve is movements that you're able to control as an athlete, is namely not making any technical error, getting a perfect A score, and landing all of your difficulty components, which is your C score. The only thing really that you cannot control is the performance score provided by the B judges, and that's where a big part comes into play. But obviously, as an athlete, the most important thing is not to make your mistakes, which gives room for the judges to deduct.
Yeah, that's right. And if we've seen from yesterday's competitor and even the earlier events, you can see that the rankings between the top competitors is a lot of the times separated by 0.02, 0.01 difference. So at this level of stage of competition, you really want to ensure that you maximize your points that you're able to obtain in that B score if you want to finish in the podium.
That's right. And with the top medaling competitors, typically all of them have similar A's and C scores where they cannot afford and will not make those mistakes. And really the determination between a gold medal and a bronze medal is that performance score.
We see our next competitor preparing on the sidelines. Slight calibration from the judges. Our next competitor is from Morocco, Mohamed Regrari. As we wait for the next competitor, don't forget that you can also view us on our social media feeds. Will be continuing coverage of the 14th World Wushu Championships throughout the week. You can check out videos, short clips, and pictures on our Instagram page at IWF_official, on Facebook at the International Wushu Federation website, IWF official, and of course you're watching us live on IWF Wushu on YouTube. Looks like there's a slight delay with the judges.
I think this gives a timeout, and we'd like to say hello to some of our viewers and some of our friends back home. And I know I promised a shout out to Justine Agalus from the United States, who is a big Wushu fan and as well a big supporter of Wushu events. Anybody you need to say hi to, Mario?
I'd like to say hi to everybody back home at the Professional Martial Arts Academy in Sterling, Virginia, my home gym. I'm sure I've gotten a couple of messages. A couple of you are watching intently. I hope you're enjoying the stream.
Yeah, currently it's early morning back home, but a lot of our young students are already training. with Wushu Taolu competition. A lot of the kids are training to develop their physical ability, their physical literacy. In terms, it's a great sport to use not only as a understanding of martial combat and self-defense, but really to develop the coordination in athletes, in children, understanding their left and right. And with the difficulties now, is really developing jumping ability that can help athletes in any sport.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the development across the world stage. You can even see many of the younger competitors starting to come into the limelight, even at the World Championships. We're seeing the development of Wushu spread across the U.S. like wildfire and across the world. And you're starting to see a lot of younger competitors learning and developing their skills a lot faster. It seems like every generation skips a generation.
That's right, and with the Wushu Taolu competition, it really provides an outlet, a safe outlet for younger children and athletes prior to whether they decide to go into combative competition, to give them a chance to really develop their fundamental movements in striking, kicking, developing their physical ability in speed and power, using weaponry. So whether they're just a big fan of kung fu movies and martial arts movies, or a fan of the combat, Wushu is a great sport for them. So we are here at the 14th World Wushu Championships in the men's Nangun event. This is Alan Tang from Canada along with Mario Martinez commentating here for the men's Nangun or Southern Staff routine. We have completed 12 of 49 athletes in this event.
And don't forget, we'll be bringing you live feed coverage of the World Wushu Championships throughout the week. You can check us out on the YouTube page. We'll be going live around 2:30 in the afternoon for the predominant of the week. I believe on our last day we have a full day with a couple of the remaining events. And it looks like we're ready to get underway.
This is our athlete from Morocco. We have 5 full days of competition, beginning early in the morning with Sanda, full contact combat competition, followed by the afternoon session of Wushu Taolu, and then a night final of the combative competition. Here we have an outside kick, but slightly loose on the landing. What you really want to demonstrate as an athlete in Taolu is the strength and clarity and stability of those landings after a jump kick. Demonstrating the application of the strikes and blocks using the weapon.
There we see that jump inside fall. There we see some of the combinations in the form. Opening was very strong, very intricate opening techniques. We're standing by for the judges' score.
A typical Taolu routine is comprised of movements that translate to about 1 minute and 20 seconds of competition. During that 1 minute and 20 seconds, an athlete is required to demonstrate a combination of strikes, attacks, blocks, along with difficulty jump kicks. And the judges are looking to deduct them for any errors. In this case, the final score 7.77 for our athlete from Morocco. You see several deductions in Group A, which is for the technical components, deduction for losing balance, and as well for that butterfly stance, where the requirement is keeping a heel on the floor, and several deductions in terms of his difficulty components.
Our next competitor is from Algeria.
Nijari Eminen. He's one of many athletes competing in this field of 49 today. A backflip into butterfly stance, followed by an outside 540. You saw the missed landing there. So definitely that will cost him at least a 0.3 for that difficulty combination. And when we're putting these routines together, what we talk about in difficulty is there are A-level difficulties where the movement is typically worth a 0.2 value, and the landing or transitional component typically worth 0.1. Then as you move up to B-level difficulty, which comprises of more harder moves or movement with more rotation, typically the movement is worth 0.3 and the transition is worth 0.15. Today you saw one of the athletes demonstrate a C-level difficulty, which the rotations typically go up to 720 degrees, and the value of those movements go up to 0.4. Is that correct, Mario?
I believe so. So thereby you can see that the overall point structure is really up to the athlete and their coach to maximize that point value and ensure that they're able to execute the movements. But of course, then you still have to demonstrate power, strength, speed, martial prowess, your overall technique. So there's a lot more to it. It's quite tricky to make sure that you comprise a routine that suits your strengths and that you are able to execute at the highest level.
That's right, and in this case of our athlete from Algeria, you saw when he missed that 540-degree jump kick. So for example, there was a value of 0.3 plus 0.15 on that difficulty move, and definitely that will be taken away and is deducted from his final score. And as we see, there it is, it's a final score of 8.66.
Same deductions, loss of balance and heel up on that butterfly stance. I think what we were seeing in Qiangshu, where the judges were really emphasizing back sweep, it looks like today, that butterfly stance is really going to be something that they're going to be looking at closely.
Yes.
I know if I was the coach sitting in the back, I'd be emphasizing to my athletes to ensure that that heel is down on all landings and stances.
That's right, because that is one of the few deduction areas that the judges look at in the Southern style. Is our athlete from Hong Kong,
Chuk Hei Leung.
some strong landings on his difficulty components. As you see, we're trying to minimize any swing or any bouncing on those landings.
And again, that's where you're seeing a lot of the experience come through. Although the only requirement for the rotations may be 360 degrees or 540 degrees, the more seasoned athletes are ensuring that they over-rotate those landings to ensure it leaves no doubt in the judge's mind that they were actually successful in executing those techniques.
Very nice inside drop kick. And the final empty stance to his routine. This was Chuck Hae Leung from Hong Kong.
Final score 9.52.
And the final score for Chuck Hae Leung from Hong Kong, 9.52, having one deduction for that butterfly stance.
Looks like he was able to capture all of his points for his difficulties with a Group B score of 2.62. Good for 4th place at the moment. And our next competitor is from Greece, Panagiotis Marios Velisario.
Some loss of balance on his landing there, as we see.
And the number 34, Anna.
And here we have it. This is the competitor from Greece, Panagiotis. As we await a score, and on deck is Marcelo Yamada from Brazil.
There we see that stumble on this jump inside, placing the hand down again. When the hand is down, it's considered a fall, which is unfortunately a 0.3 deduction.
There you saw the inside drop, and really you want to, as an athlete in this division, to keep the hand up and minimize the bouncing on that movement. So definitely those issues and those areas are for deduction by the judges. His final score, 6.57. You see quite a few deductions for those areas that we mentioned, which are areas that he lost balance and put his hand down onto that floor.
Looks like there was even a deduction, Alan, for him stepping outside of the carpet. He may have come really close, and maybe a judge might have seen that.
And here we have Marcelo Yamada from Brazil. He's one of the top competitors coming out of the Pan Americas. He's been a former gold medalist at the Pan Am Championships and has been competing for quite a long time. So we hope to see a strong performance from him today. His outside 540-degree kick, followed by a backflip into a butterfly stance. inside kick into a butterfly stance and outside 360. So very strong combination so far. Now trying to demonstrate some speed and power in his routine. In his second section, demonstrating the required blocking and striking of the Southern staff. His inside drop, very nice landing. Very minimal bouncing on that. That's what you're trying to achieve. Leading up to his final combination. And I would say a relatively strong routine demonstrated by Marcello.
You can tell he's a seasoned competitor, and a lot of the jumps, a lot of the execution was done very well. We'll have to see how this overall B judge score.
A very strong score of 9.56 for Marcello, which currently places him into 4th place.
And our next competitor is from Singapore, Yijie Randall Lim.
One of the younger competitors on the circuit.
Here we have setting up for his first jump. Jump outside 540, kick into a horse stance landing. Jump inside kick into a jump front kick with a very well executed single leg landing. He's having no problem with any of these difficulties.
Final score 5.7. And the number 26, Mendo Nirena.
The typical requirement for the long weapons in cudgel or the staff, both in southern and northern, the length of the weapon must be the minimum height of the participant or the athlete. So typically you'll see that the weapon is just slightly higher than the height of the individual. In the southern staff, the staff is heavier, whereas northern staff, you're looking at a thinner staff and more lightweight. So in the southern style, typically using that weapon, you want to showcase and generate power, whereas in the northern style, it's much more speed and intricate movements involved.
Overall, really strong performance from Randall. We'll have to see how he stacks up. He looks like one of our younger competitors.
His final score is 9.46, having a deduction for that butterfly stance. And next one, again, another veteran athlete from Japan. This is Ryoda Mori, a former medalist from previous World Championships.
opening jump, backflip into that butterfly stance.
Strong landing. Then a outside 540-degree kick, followed by inside 540-degree kick, and 360 outside combination. That takes care of most of his difficulty components. Now demonstrating the compulsory blocks and strikes required. And his final 540 kick.
Very difficult to do, very late in this form. There may have been a slight loss of the weapon there.
Let's see if the judges catch that one.
He was facing the opposite direction, so they may have missed it.
Coming up to his final combination.
Strong performance from Ryota Muri. You can definitely see the experience there.
And right now in this group of athletes, we have several strong competitors on deck.
You can see the way that he lands all of his jumps. Very solid, no additional movements or stability needed.
Following Ryuta, we have Nangun Lee from Korea. And his final score, 9.51, good enough for 6th place.
And it looks like they did catch that hand coming off the weapon, which cost him a 0.1 deduction off his Group A score.
Which is very, very important. And that would have made a difference between him being in about a 4th place ranking and now down to 6th place. So again, stressing how important it is for athletes not to have areas of deduction. This is Youngmun Lee from Korea in the Nanquan division.
And of course, Youngmun being our silver medalist from the 13th World Wushu Championship in this same event, men's Nangun.
Strong opening sequence, leading up to a 540-degree outside kick rotation and an inside front gainer combination, finishing off on the outside kick and inside 540-degree rotation, which is the majority of his required difficulty. Now again, the compulsory strikes and blocks using the southern staff, swinging upward strike. That is a back whip kick. This is the common side blocking combination in Nangun. Pushing strike, downward strike. The inside drop kick. I think that's the things like that is the slight difference, is you saw that little bounce off of that drop kick, and really as a top level athlete you really don't want to do that. You want to land that flat on without any movement. But in general, a very strong performance. Good landings on those 540 rotations.
He gets a lot of height on his jumps, but what you really take away is the way that he controls the landings on each one of the executed techniques.
You saw slightly a bounce, wasn't a flat landing on that. And we're just waiting the final score for Youngman Lee from Korea,
Final score 9.61.
which is 9.61. Very strong score.
Currently puts him in third.
Achieving all of his difficulty components and as well his technical components, getting a perfect score. But little things like that is kind of the difference between the top three. Is really you're looking for the control, the speed, and the power depicted.
And our next competitor is from Turkey, Halil Kalaisi.
Final score 8.9.
Now, Alan, I believe our next competitor was China. It looks like they may be dropping this event.
That's right. We skip forward to our competitor from Turkey, Halil Kalasi.
Really strong jump, solid landings. Now, if this is your first time watching these events, you may notice that some athletes may opt to place a bit of grip tape on their Nanguns. And that's just to get a little bit of better grip and better control of their weapon.
Yeah, and each year of competition, I feel there's slightly different requirements or technical regulations. Prior to this, during many years of competition, athletes were not allowed to put anything on their apparatus. But currently in this state, they do allow on the staffs, whether it's grip tape or whatnot. I remember during my years, that was a big thing. No one was allowed to put anything on their weapons.
I remember having to use a staff that was higher than my height, that was fairly significantly thick, almost like a tree that I had to cut down in my backyard.
And now these
Halil's,
weapons,
that's right,
are made, a lot of the newer ones are made of composite material.
Halil's final score, 9.40. We see that deduction for that butterfly stance, the heel being up, putting him currently in 9th place.
And next up we have Adriano da Silva from Brazil, another very strong competitor and very experienced. He was one of the Pan Am champions, along with his colleague Marcelo, a very strong pairing from Brazil. Nice backflip into butterfly stance.
Jump outside kick, 360 into a horse stance. Jump inside into that
Double butterfly stance.
double butterfly stance, gainer. Slight loss of balance there on that jump inside.
I'm sure the judges will catch that one. Adriano's been competing many, many years on both the Pan Am circuit and the World Circuit. I believe at one time he was a medalist at the World Championships. Nice inside drop kick, very strong landing on that.
There we see his opening moves. Immediately into a backflip, into that butterfly stance. There we see that double knee gainer.
Quite sure based on the way the judges are deducting today, yeah, those heels coming up on his butterfly stances deducted 3 times on, I believe, both his landings of the inside 540 and as well that double butterfly stance. We kind of saw that coming. So 0.3 deduction on his Group A score, and losing that for his Group C score.
Our next competitor is from Iran.
Hossein Rahmani.
There we see that loss of balance on that gainer and putting his hand down, and as we know, that's a 0.3 deduction.
And a loss of his difficulty component there. And if you're just joining us, this is floor number 2 or carpet 2 with the Nanquan Southern events here today. This is the men's Nanquan Southern staff. Currently just beginning on floor 1 is the women's Qiangshu or spear. You can join our colleagues. Anthony is commentating over there
with Jeevan. You can check them out on the second live YouTube stream.
We're here at the 14th World Wushu Championships in Kazan, Russia. This is day 2 of competition. This is the afternoon session of the Taolu events.
We're currently halfway through the field of men's Nangun with a total of 49 competitors. This was Hossein Rahmani from Iran. Strong opening. There we see his jump, that gainer. Looks like his front foot just slid out just a little bit much, making him lose his balance backward and requiring that hand support. Of course, maintaining his composure, continuing as if nothing had happened.
And his final score is 7.85. Getting deducted on 3 of his difficulty components, along with 3 deductions for loss of balance, his butterfly stance, and
looks like there was a cost for extra support, which is a 0.2.
That was from his gainer movement.
Yeah, so it looks like they didn't give him the full fall since there was only 1 point of contact.
Next up, a competitor from Latvia. This is Ivo Arst. Very nice. 540-degree jump kick. But he will, as you see, he's not landing those kicks clearly. As a requirement, you're supposed to place both feet on the floor at exactly the same time. There's slightly a delay on his landing, which might cost him. Inside drop kick fall, and demonstrating some of the traditional upper blocks. The final push strike with the staff and empty stance finish. That was Ivo Arst from Latvia.
There you see his jump outside into a horse stance landing.
I believe he slightly under-rotated on that. Very close.
There we see that inside. You see him landing on the right foot and then sliding down. The timing of that landing has to be sequential. Both feet have to land at the same time. Final score for Ivo, 8.40. We see one deduction for that butterfly stance, but the majority of deductions are coming from the jumps, with a total of 1.0 out of a possible 2.0.
Missing that 540-degree rotation. He under-rotated, and as well, I believe it was for that inside 540, where he did not land sequentially. And our next competitor is from Spain. We have Jose Manuel. And following him will be Junhua Huang from Macau.
Athlete number 28 into the arena.
Really intricate opening.
Final score 9-1.
Outside 540. Inside 540, a slight sway. I'm not sure if he held long enough on that one. And into a back flip, butterfly stance landing. There's a very intricate form, but I'm not sure if he's holding tight on his apparatus and missing several of those stops. So those are areas that the judges may look at.
Now, of course, if this is your first time watching Wushu and you're wondering if it's difficult for the judges to follow where the difficulty techniques are, a requirement of competition is that the athlete submit a form that states where in their performance those movements will be executed. That way the judges know to look out for those areas of those techniques. The additional part of it is the judges have a clicker system. So anytime a deduction is made, the judges must click. And the clicks must sync within, I believe it's 3 seconds of one another. If two judges say that it counts and one disagrees, it stands. If we cannot get a minimum of 2 agreements of a missed technique, then it remains. So it's a disparate process. Judges aren't able to see or know what judges what. So that way we have a completely fair process in judging those difficulty techniques.
The only difficulty they may have is making sure that they're all seeing the same thing or catching the same thing. So sometimes you do get athletes getting away with mistakes based on where the judge is viewing them from or whether they catch that error in time.
Yeah, if you can see the overall speed that these movements are executed, a lot of times it takes a very careful eye to be able to see the rotations. And Jose Manuel's final score, 8.39. We see a series of deductions for that butterfly stance, a loss of balance. Looks like judges are really looking at that heel down on that butterfly stance.
That's right. It's equivalent to that back sweep requirement in Qiangshu. In the southern styles, the judges are really looking at athletes keeping that back heel down for that stance requirement.
And up next is our competitor from Macau, Junhua Huang.
Final score.
Very strong back tuck into single butterfly stance. Outside 540 degree with landing in horse stance. Inside into front gainer, very sharp landing. So as you see, those landings, even though these athletes are not holding it for quite that long, they don't need to because they're really indicating how strong and how accurate their landing is so that there's no doubt in the judge's mind that their landing was solid. And that's a skill set that you see only the top athletes having. That's the inside drop kick. And leading up to the final combination in his routine.
Really strong performance overall. Again, it's really coming down to that top podium finishers. Those top scores are in this 9.6.
That's right.
It's really coming down to that B score, that overall performance.
And that overall performance really out of those top few competitors is the difference in their expression, their speed, the intent, and accuracy of their use of the apparatus. But so far, really, in currently first place, Po Wei Lai from Taipei, we really saw him stand out in terms of his choreography and the way he applied his form. So Junhua Huang, one of the top scores, 9.60, good enough for 4th place.
Again, it comes down to that B score. He's got all his points for his A score, 5 points. All of his difficulties, 2.0, and then that B score with that 2.6.
And we saw Po Wei Lai from Taipei really stand out, and we still remember he was the 3rd athlete to go up, and he demonstrated some amazing choreography in his routine, and more importantly, in the Southern style, is that endurance factor. He was strong from beginning right to the end.
Yeah. And here's, of course, one of our all-time favorites, multi-time champion in Southern events, Michele Giordano from Italy. very seasoned competitor. There we see that jump inside into Gainer.
And he does it with a bit of a sideways flare.
Jump outside 360 into a horse stance landing. Now, for those of you at home watching, not only is Michele Giordano a many-time world champion, but if you can believe this, he trains on a basketball court.
I remember Michelle actually beginning competition about the time I stopped.
What was that, like 2 years ago?
Not quite, a little bit longer than that. But Michelle's been competing, I believe, probably since 2001.
Yeah. I mean, you can just see the level of experience. Overall, the techniques, what to expect, his preparation, really strong.
I'm sure he'll give a challenge for those top few places. And really in this field, currently the top 6, top 8 competitors have been very, very strong.
There we see his opening movements. There we see that Gainer with a slight twist to the side, really strong.
And this was very interesting, a reverse Gainer. Very innovative move as he awaits the score.
Final score 8.78. Event number 6, Anthony Arena.
We're here in the men's Nangun Southern Staff competition. We have completed 30 of the 49 athletes, and the final score for Michele Giordano, 9.58. As I mentioned, Mario, the top 6 competitors, all very, very strong scores.
Yeah, that overall B score is really going to be the defining score that sets the overall podium finishes.
Yeah, because you're looking at all the top 8 landing all of their difficulty and getting full marks on their technical requirements. But you've seen so far the standout performers really so far. Our gold medalist position is held by Po Wai Lai from Taipei. Not sure that anyone from this field is going to catch him at this point. He did a remarkable routine. And currently in second place we have Man Hua Ho from Malaysia, followed by Yongman Lee from Korea. And then the next few down from there have been very, very tight, from ranking from 6 to 8.
And our next competitor currently underway is from Egypt, Abdelrahman Ehab Kalreddin. lost. There he goes. Lost that weapon on the final movement.
Final score 6-1-8-7. Athlete number 7, Nangun.
There you see a jump inside into a single leg balance, multiple losses. Now, what you'll notice is anytime that an athlete loses balance, the deduction code requirement is that he sway in two multiple directions. So the multiple swaying back and forth could be construed as multiple deductions, and that's actually the case. We see his final score is 8.18, and we see 3 deductions for a loss of balance.
And next up, we have Dmitry from Russia. I haven't had a chance of seeing Dmitry compete yet, but as with many of the other Russian athletes, they typically are very, very strong. Sharp, clear opening.
Jump outside a 540, kick into a horse dance landing. Back flip with a slight correction.
But he held it quite well.
Held it, yep.
And a 540 into a butterfly stance landing. Into a 360.
And that's really where that experience comes into play. A lot of the times you're able to capture and know how to meet the requirements for that technique.
Outside 360. So relatively clean routine so far.
Yeah, Dmitry's putting on a good performance, very strong.
Should challenge, I would say, for the top 8.
Yes.
But in this field, he has some very, very strong competitors up against him.
Final score 9.45.
There you see that back tuck landing.
But he caught it very well.
Yeah.
Caught it very, very well.
Stand by for the judges' score. .59 for Dmitry Tionov, and it looks like he was able to obtain all of his points for his A judge and all of his difficulty techniques with an overall B score of 2.59. Good for 6th place. And our next competitor is from France, Victor Rousseau.
back tuck into butterfly stance, followed by inside.
Now it looks like his heel came up on that one, Anthony. We'll have to see if the judges caught that.
That's right, and even on his outside kick there, slight sway. I know you. There's his compulsory blocking and striking sequences.
Now remember, after the execution of all the difficulty techniques, the judges are looking for that demonstration of power. They want to see a continuation of all those movements and energy throughout the third and fourth sections of the form.
And that's what we've seen as the big difference between those top three athletes competing in the men's Nanquan is they were able to run their routine from start to finish, having an immense energy and power. And as an elite level sport, that's really what you call at the world championship level, and what you see in the athletes in their ability. And the final score for Victor Russo is 8.87.
Looks like we see the deduction for a loss of balance and the heel up on that butterfly stance.
In this field of 49, I can attest that those top 12 athletes have all been very, very strong. Whereas when you look at the scores, the top 8 are the ones that really stand out, and the top 3 so far have been the ones that were untouchable.
Yeah. Our next competitor is from Afghanistan, Ebram Jamshid. Now, Alan, it's going to be interesting to see if the remaining couple of athletes are able to top that top podium finish. We've got strong competitors from Korea, Macau, Vietnam, a lot of former medalists in that grouping. It'll be interesting to see now that they know what the judges are looking for, if they're able to make that adjustment and emphasize those key movements and maximize that point value and raise that B score.
Slightly mishandled the weapon there.
And Alan, I think we've seen a couple of athletes let go of their weapons.
That's a 0.3 deduction.
Yeah, I suspect that athletes are trying to up their speed, seeing that overall B score being the defining podium finish. You know,
that factor, yeah.
Yeah, so I think a lot of them are really pushing their speed, and there we see it, just a little bit unable to get that grip.
And once you go faster, that's the challenge, is you have to be able to handle the apparatus properly.
Abram's final score, 6.89. Looks like he missed a couple of difficulties, and it looks like he may have not opted to do full 2.0 points for his difficulties. and then had a couple of deductions for some.
Next, we have Deepak Kamal from Nepal.
Final score 8.32. At the number 11, at the nearing.
As our Nepalese athlete finishes off his final combinations. You can see just how tiring these final sequences are.
There you see that jump inside into a gainer,
Gainers.
to that butterfly stance again. A little difficult with that front foot sliding out.
Final score 8.7.
His final score, 8.74.
Athlete number 39 at the arena.
And our next competitor from Australia, this is Shane Kong.
Final score 9.64.
Here we have a setup for his first jump. Jump outside 540. It looks like it was a little short. Of course, athletes may opt to over-rotate, so that may have been a 360. We'll have to see how the judges score that.
Nice back tuck into a butterfly stance landing. And inside 360. Not a bad performance so far.
A little bit of an innovative move there.
But where you see the difference, very clean form, but it's in really that speed difference in the top athletes. I've seen much improvement from this Australian team in the last several World Championships. Does the push staff finish into an empty stance. Overall, a clean form by Shane. Strong landings on both his 540-degree rotations and his back tuck. Slight bounce on that inside drop. But again, that's not a deduction point, just his overall performance.
Overall final score, 8.31. We see a deduction for a loss of balance, the heel coming up on the butterfly stance, and then a couple of deductions for some of his difficulties. Potentially, they may have been noted as higher rotations and they may have under-rotated.
And this is Hangsung Lee from Korea. There's a back tuck into a butterfly stance. There's a 540-degree rotation. So it's important for the athletes to definitely, when you're talking about the outside jump kick or the inside jump kick, to over-rotate or to nail down your rotation. Because as you said, with the more experienced athletes, as we see here with the Korean athlete, they really over-rotate those jumps to ensure that they're valid and that there are no deductions on any of them.
That's right. As you're watching the performers execute their techniques, or the athletes hitting those rotational movements, the way that the judges are gauging their rotation is they're drawing a straight line through both feet. And that is the plane that they're gauging the rotation. And so you may notice some athletes shuffling their feet upon takeoff just to give them a little bit more of a wind-up. So that's where you really have to be careful, because that rotation is gauged on the last position your feet were in prior to takeoff.
And you see this performance by the Korean athlete, very, very strong, much sharper movements, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the top 8. Quick sequences, the blocking and striking, compulsory movements, push staff. It's the outside 540. As you see, he over-rotates it by at least 10 to 15 degrees. Very sharp. And he's one of those veteran athletes. You see how he lands that inside drop kick. It goes immediately into a different movement, so that there is no chance of a bounce. 9.58, that's good enough for 7. Pretty good call there, eh, Mario?
Good call. Full A points, full C points. It's that overall B score. Again, we're seeing it all afternoon.
You see, and what I've noticed is that within the top 8, that 9.5 to 9.59 is a very good score, but you're only getting into that top 6 of 9.6s if you're just an abundance of speed and power right to the end. And I think for that Taipei athlete currently in first place, Po Wei Lai, it's the choreography that's making a difference. Very unique, very creative, but yet very effective. And that's the fine line between effective choreography versus going, I believe, non-traditional and not having a good outcome on it.
Yeah, it's a really important relationship between the athlete and their coach to ensure that they come up with some sort of techniques and choreography that highlight the athlete's strength and minimize anything that potentially doesn't look as strong.
More is not always better.
That's right. Yep.
And our next athlete coming up is Wai Kwong Chiao from Macau. Like many of the athletes coming up from the Asian countries, he's more seasoned based on other events that he has competed in. Macau, one of the stronger nations, even in Asia. Showcasing clear, solid movements at the beginning of the routine. Some traditional stances in Nangun that you don't often see. I have a 540 plus an inside 360 into another 540 jump kick. Opting to have the front jump kick into single leg balance, a A-level difficulty. So I'm sure he's opting for slightly more difficulties, but lower point value. What's interesting about his choreography is the addition of those traditional stances and shifting, which is unique in its own right. Very sharp landing on his inside drop. That's a perfect example. Landed flat on with no bouncing. Clean routine by the Macau athlete.
There we see that opening.
Very intricate footwork on his behalf. Side strike, side block combination. And his final score is 9.37. One deduction for his back heel on that butterfly stance, along with a deduction for a slight loss of balance. But you see overall, his Group B score being 2.57 is relative to being clean, but less difficulty, less speed. That really affects that B score. Here we have Kok Tat Cao from Vietnam. Very strong opening.
I know this year Vietnam has a very strong team. They've usually pump out very strong athletes.
He did
jump outside
big
720.
Big jump. First time in the men's division, outside 720. Strong opening. I think we were both surprised to see that one. And he nailed it. Some very nice choreography. See if he can keep up his energy level in his third and fourth section. Inside drop, a slight bounce on that landing. Leading up into his final sequence.
That looked like a strong performance. We'll have to see how it gets scored. Remember, it's coming down to that B score.
That's right, and he was the only athlete to complete that 720.
Yeah.
But however, aside from difficulty alone, also looking at the overall choreography, the speed, the power exerted in the entire routine, I would say is worthy of a top 8. Let's see if he can break into the top 6 even.
There we see a left side jump inside. We haven't seen that.
Very interesting and unique sequence of difficulty jumps for this Vietnamese athlete. Here's the high strike.
Final score 9.60.
9.60. Good enough for 4th place, almost breaking into the top 3. So as we mentioned, it was quite accurate. His difficulty really raised up his B score, and he had perfect A score and C score. So he's right up there, and there's no shame. That top 4.
That was a strong performance.
Yeah, those 4 athletes have been right up there.
And our next competitor is from France, Taolman Malcock. Jump outside 540 into a horse stance, a slight loss there. He had to take a step. And there you see he placed his left foot on the ground on a balance. He's not able to get additional support. There we see his closing movements. That's Taolman Malcock from France. Saw a couple of potential deductions in some of the difficulty techniques. We'll have to see how the judges score. Here we see that jump inside, and he landed on his right leg and went down. And here that single leg balance with that additional support. Final score 7.8. The judges definitely caught that. There are a couple of deductions in the overall difficulty movements and some of the technical deductions. Losses of balance, heels up on that heel. Overall bringing his score down to 7.80. And our current competitor, Boumediene Ahmed from Algeria. We're into the final 6 male competitors in the men's Nangun event. And of course, stay with us upon the ending of this event, as we'll be proceeding into the medal ceremony shortly thereafter.
The medal ceremonies will be for both the women's Nanquan, the men's Nangun, and as well for the events that occurred in carpet number 1, which is the men's Daoshu broadsword and the women's Qiangshu, or spear, which is just about finishing up right now as well. That was the athlete from Algeria, and following him, we have 5 more athletes. We have Thornton Sayan from the Philippines, followed by Quoc Con Pham from Vietnam.
Final score 8.51.
The final score is 8.51.
Athlete number 45 to enter the arena.
Mohammedan Ahmed from Algeria. And next up we have Thornton Sayan from the Philippines.
Pretty good. Top 8 is pretty darn good.
That opening sequence is typically very clean and very sharp. That's what the athletes are looking to do. Followed by a very solid back flip into butterfly stance. Outside 540 into horse stance. And there you see again, it's a left side inside jump kick followed by a gainer. And I guess a lot of athletes are opting to do that in order to help the rotation of that gainer. And where you have to adapt on that, Mario, is typically if you tuck off on the right leg, what you have to do is throw your left leg up for the gainer. Whereas if you're taking off from your left leg for the inside kick, then you're able to easily throw the right leg off that one step. And that's the difference.
Definitely a bit unorthodox, but it seems to be working out very well for those competitors that are opting to choose that side.
A clean performance by Thornton Sayan from the Philippines.
Really strong opening. There we see that inside.
Left side, single step. Oh, he throws a right leg, sorry. Because otherwise you would have to throw the left leg for that gainer move.
Final score 9.54. Final score 9.56.
Final score 9.56. Again, a very respectable score. Currently placing him 10th of 49, and we've seen any athlete with the 9.5s have been very, very strong.
And our next competitor is from Vietnam, Quoc Con Pham.
He's rounding up our final 4 competitors. Good speed on his opening sequence. Follows through with a 540-degree outside kick. And that same gainer combination. And a back tuck into a butterfly stance. Oh! And there you see it, a breakage of a southern staff. We don't see that much. He had a lot of power going into that.
And unfortunately, once you break your weapon and it becomes too short than the required length, unfortunately, that means that you are out of the competition.
That's right. Previously, athletes were able to opt to redo their routine, but it's a full mark deduction. He had a very strong start to his form, and most of the breakages in the long weapons, you usually see that from the northern style. The southern style, that staff is a big staff. It's not easy to break.
It's a lot of power that he put into that weapon in order to get that breakage, particularly in that movement. And our current competitor is from Armenia, Gevorg Yeritsin.
Slight bounce on that 540 landing. And in that 540 inside, he landed one leg at a time, so most likely he won't get his mark for that difficulty component. So you can attest to why some athletes may choose to use the new composite materials, as the material in the staff is typically stronger and you don't run into those situations of breaking your weapon. However, on the contrary, some athletes are very comfortable using the real staff or the natural wood and not choosing to use the newer composite weapons. What kind of wood do you like, Mario?
There we see that jump outside 540 with that slight stutter step.
Some bouncing on his landing of that, but also you see there on the 360, he really didn't land that jump kick sequentially with both his feet. So
final score for Gevorg, 8.14.
And you see several deductions for his difficulty components, not achieving the rotation nor the landings for his 540 movements. And next we're waiting for Ingus Ars from Latvia. Rounding up our final two competitors in this field of 49. My guess is that his brother is Ivo. Both Latvian competitors doing Nangun. There's a southern staff routine. Slip on the horse stance landing.
Now remember, one of the requirements that the judges are looking for on some of those kicks is that they be shoulder level. At least from our perspective, they look to be a little bit short.
And this is our athlete from Latvia, Ingus Ars. See the importance of the footwork in the southern staff. Slightly shaky on those stances. And you saw that really reflected in the requirement of his difficulty component, some swaying. You see the heel movement. However, that's reflected in the deductions.
Final score being 7.02. We see a series of deductions for losses of balance, the heel up on the butterfly, kicking below shoulder level, and then a couple of missed difficulty movements. And we're down to our last competitor from Spain, Francisco Manzuecos.
This is men's Nangun, Southern Staff. Sharp opening into a 540 outside kick, followed by a back tuck into single butterfly stance. Inside 540 into butterfly stance. Completing most of his difficulties in section 1. Oh, and he slightly mishandled the apparatus at that move there. Judges should have caught that one. Into his final combination. This is Francisco from Spain. And that rounds it up. That is our men's Nangun competition. We'll see his final results. Some of the compulsory offensive, defensive techniques. He got good height on that inside 540 jump kick.
Final score for Francisco, 9.25.
Very respectful score. He was deducted for that heel, and as well, they did catch him letting go of that weapon there. And in our overall rankings, top 3 from Taipei, Powai Lai getting the gold medal, followed by Man Hua Ho from Malaysia in the silver medal position. And rounding up the top 3, Youngman Lee from Korea scoring 9.61.
And of course, don't go anywhere. We're going to go for a brief pause as we prepare for the medal ceremonies.
Coming up for all 4 events of this morning's session at the 14th World Wushu Championships, live from Kazan, Russia.
This concludes the second session of the 13th World Wushu Championship. Would the judges please leave the arena? Первая сессия 4-го чемпионата мира по Wushu закончилась. Судьи, просим вас покинуть арену. Дорогие зрители, родительская просьба вас оставаться с нами буквально еще на 10 минут, потому что через 2 минуты начнется красочная церемония награждения победителей. Оставайтесь вместе с нами и разделите этот радостный момент вместе с атлетами. Спасибо. Для тех, кто у нас хочет прийти длинную вечернюю сессию. Напоминаю, что она будет 19:30 через 2 часа, так что у вас есть уйма времени, чтобы сходить перекусить, отправиться домой, потому что она будет уже происходить вот там вот. Окей, конечно, у вас осталось немного, и вы те самые классные болельщики, которые остаются спортсменами на церемонии награждения, но, давайте так, кто готов остаться на церемонии награждения, поаплодируйте этим красавцам, этим молодцам! О, вот есть. Хорошо. Теперь я вам исключительно опять обращаюсь к тем, кто был в первый раз, играет в футбол много любителей? Есть. Кто понял, что реально классно вообще, прям интересно? Есть. Хорошо, такой вопрос. Тем, кто вот уже разбирается в ушу, смотрели вообще как эксперты, это лучше, чем вы видели до этого? Или, в принципе, вообще вот так вот? Я вот видел от молодого человека, ну было много вообще. Ладно, класс, давайте так, те, кто решил остаться с нами на церемонии награждения, советую вас не стоять, в ногах правды нет, присаживайтесь все. Мы с вами так вот немножко пошумим, покричим опять же, и потом уже объявим церемонию награждения. Присаживайтесь.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 14th World Wushu Championships. Victory ceremony for Taolu, Daoshu, men. Дамы и господа, церемония награждения 14-го чемпионата мира по спортивному вушу.
And we are kicking off the medal ceremony for this evening's events. Up first, from field of play 1, from the first carpet, will be men's Daoshu.
Executive Board Member of the International Wushu Federation. Flowers, certificates and passports will be presented by Igor Greg, Vice President of the Russian Wushu Federation. медали вручения команде Алиджан. Член исполнительного комитета Международной Федерации Wushu.
And here we see our top 3 podium finishers awaiting their medals.
Вице-президент Федерации Wushu России. Bronze medalist representing Singapore. Бронзовая медаль. Представитель Сингапура. Си Вэй Ли.
And our bronze medalist from Singapore, standing by to receive his medal.
Silver medalist representing Indonesia. Серебряная медаль представитель Индонезии. Эдвард Хария Марвел.
And there you have your silver medalist.
Gold medalist and world champion representing People's Republic of China. Золотую медаль на звание чемпиона мира завоевал.
And our gold medalist from China.
Ши Ли. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the national anthem of People's Republic of China. Дамы и господа, прошу всех встать. Звучит государственный гимн Китайской Народной Республики.
We stand for the men's Daoshu gold medal, the Chinese national anthem.
Ladies and gentlemen, damas, дамы и господа, приветствую спортсмена!
There you have it. China adding another gold medal to their podium finishes. And it looks like the second group of athletes are preparing to walk out into the stadium. Our next medal ceremony coming up will be for women's Qiangshu. Immediately following the women's Qiangshu medal ceremony, we'll stand by for women's Nanquan, and then followed by men's Nangun.
Victory ceremony for Taolu, Qiangshu women. Церемония награждения 14-го чемпионата мира по спортивному Wushu, Taolu, Qiangshu.
There we see our women coming on for their medals.
And a great day of competition in the women's Qiangshu or spear event. And as well, we saw today in floor number 2 the men's and women's Southern styles, Nanquan, Nangun. On floor 1 was the men's Daoshu and women's Qiangshu. And here we have the medal presentation.
And it looks like we have some repeat medalists from our last few World Wushu Championships, some of our standout athletes in that event.
That's right, and rounding up the top 3, we're getting ready for the medal presentations.
Сертификаты и маскоты вручает Игорь Крейгер, вице-президент Федерации Wushu России. Bronze medalist representing Japan. Бронзовая медаль представительница Японии.
This is our bronze medalist with
Keiko Yamaguchi from Japan.
and she scored a final score of 9.56. She was as well one of our top performers yesterday in the Qiangshu event. And really, when you look at the final scoring results, typically the top tier of athletes score approximately 9.5s, 9.6. Here's our silver medalist from Korea, this Hee-ju Seo.
She's a longtime Korea team member, also many-time podium finisher. Really strong performances from all 3 of these athletes.
Being presented her certificate, her silver medal, and a nice bouquet of flowers.
And of course, there has to be a gold medalist.
This is Thuy Vi Thuong from Vietnam.
Thuy has also put on strong performances at the Taolu World Cup, Southeast Asian Games, and the last couple of World Wushu Championships. She came on the string came on very strong in the competitive world, medaling and accomplishing podium finishes at the last few
World Championships.
Yeah.
She's been competing, I would say, for the last 3 World Championships at least. Very veteran athletes, and you'll see typically on top are many of the veteran athletes that have been competing for a minimum of 2 or 3 World Championships, which equates to at least 4 to 6 years or 8 years of training in competitive high-performance sport. This is the Vietnam national anthem. There you have it, our medal winners from the women's Qiangshu spear event. what do we have next up, Mario?
I can see our next group of athletes lining up to enter the stadium for the next medal ceremony, which is women's Nanquan.
The women's Nanquan event, Southern Fist. And here, as we await the medalists for the medal ceremonies.
Now, of course, it's still early on in the competition, so many of the competitors that you saw today still have an additional event. I believe many of the women as well have, and men have, straight swords, some of the short weapons, nundao. We'll have to see how these athletes continue to put on performances and still try to finish in that podium finish.
That's right. At the World Championships, these are the best athletes in the field. And I've trained many, many years for this 1 minute and 20-second routine that they perform both with bare hand and with apparatus. There are 11 different categories or styles of Taolu competition, plus 4 traditional styles. This includes bare hand events, which are the Southern Fist, the Northern Fist, or Qiangshu, and Tai Chi events. Then there are short weapons, which include the broadsword, straight sword, Tai Chi sword, and Southern sword again. And then as well the long weapons, which is the Southern staff, spear, and Northern staff. What do we have in the traditional events, Mario, that we'll be seeing in the next few days?
We have, in the men's events, we have Xingyi and double broadsword, and in the female events, we have Bagua and double straight sword.
And of course, for those as well joining us, there is the full contact combative event, which is called Sanda, or translated is free fighting in the Mandarin language.
And here's our Nanquan podium finishers. In third place, our bronze medalist from Hong Kong, Jianxing He. Very close competition between the top 3 competitors, with the difference separating the 3 of them with a .03.
Our silver medalist from Russia, Tatiana Ishvana. Former medalist at the past World Championships, and this year are getting silver in her home country.
And rounding up the top 3, our gold medalist from China, Wu Yingchen. Topping out women's Nanquan with a 9.69. I believe that's our highest second overall score that we've seen today, 9.70.
That's right.
Respectively from her Chinese teammate in the men's Qiangshu.
She did a very impressive routine today. Very clean, very sharp. I'm sure you can see that on replays for viewers that have missed that. A very, very powerful routine.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the national anthem of People's Republic of China. Дамы и господа, прошу всех встать. Звучит государственный гимн Китайской Народной Республики.
There you have it, your top 3 finishers in women's Nanquan.
And next up, we'll be awarding the medals for the men's Nangun or Southern Staff.
Now, Alan, the Chinese team is starting to rank up those gold medals. We'll have to see how they tally at the end of the competition.
That's right, and typically in the Taolu, they are the country to beat. They typically send out very, very strong athletes, winners of their national games. And of course, this being a sport from China, they have the strongest athletes that train 6-7 days a week, many hours a day. Typically, on average, I would say 6 hours at minimum per day. And they start off at a young age, developing their flexibility, their agility, their coordination. And from that, they're specializing in each of their events, which makes their abilities very formidable. So they are the athletes to look at in comparison of their skill sets and what's required in Wushu competition. And they definitely demonstrated that well in the last first 2 days of competition, winning the men's Qiangshu and as well the women's Nanquan events.
And here you have our final medal ceremony for the men's Nangun. We see the athletes approaching the podium.
And what did you make of the competition today in the men's Nangun?
It was a very competitive event. I think we've historically not had that many Southern competitors. It's really nice to see them upping the level. We saw at least one attempt at a successful attempt at a 720-degree difficulty. It was nice to see a lot of them pushing the level, but again, it all came down to that B-level overall performance.
That's right, and really that overall performance was indicative of the top 3 athletes who really demonstrated their expression, their speed, their power, and really the martial art ability, which is so important in Wushu competition. That is not only a skill of movement or whatnot, but it's really how they can demonstrate the application of martial arts, use of apparatus and striking and defense without even hitting an opponent.
There you have your bronze medalist from Korea, Youngmun Lee. Very close competition. The top 5 athletes, 3rd through 5th, being separated only by a .01.
That's right. There were 7 athletes that scored in the 9-6s. Sorry, 6 athletes, and all of them were very, very skilled and regarded. All former world champions or medalists, and it was very tight at the top. So definitely these 3 were standout performers today.
And there's your silver medalist from Malaysia, Mun Hua Ho, putting on a very strong performance, coming within striking distance of the gold medal.
He scored a 9.63. Well deserving of a podium finish here today. But here we are with the gold medalist. Coming up, this is Po Wei Lai from Chinese Taipei, our gold medal winner. Well deserving. His routine really impressed me today, Mario.
It was really strong. He really stood out, and that's why you got that 9.65, that overall performance. You know, even with him being in the beginning half of the competitors, you know, as you go on, It gives the competitors a chance to score higher and higher just as the scores are given out. But he stood out at the very beginning and he held on to that first place throughout. That was a very impressive feat.
That's right, and both his endurance, that's really stood out. He was strong from beginning to end of the routine. And as well, what was very unique was his choreography that not very many athletes are able to do, is to create unique choreography that works and that allows them to get a very, very high score. Many athletes opt to use traditional choreography, but his was amazing. And that concludes the medal ceremonies for day 2 here at the 14th World Wushu Championships in Kazan, Russia.
Taipei adds a gold medal to their standings. And of course, be sure to check us out on social media. We'll be streaming live all week the remainder of the 14th World Wushu Championships at our YouTube page
at IWUF space Wushu.
I'm Mario Martinez.
And I'm Alan Tang.
Signing out. Thank you for joining us.